You asked for a charged universal, then you get. Why is it that only fans around the world gather in a barn in this configuration? Everything is very simple. In essence, it is a background view of the automotive world. A practical body allows you to load a bunch of luggage in Russia, this, of course, the notorious potatoes from the village in large quantities, and go back to the city with the whole family and set fire on the road along the way. Let's take a look at 5 of the coolest and fastest serial delayed versatile ones of the 90s. Well, if this video picks up a bunch of watching security officials, then wait for a super universal office. Go! So, in 5th place I have. Who would have thought Japanese cars as early as 1996, if you wanted practical and at the same time able to compete on the road with powerful data? Universal Hall, you could turn your gaze on 4 very worthy barn, I will tell you it in the finale. A full translation system, a rich light leather interior, an automatic manual transmission, climate control, and even a single system with a color screen. But the most important thing is what is under the hood, and there are means to humiliate the powerful. The sedan in the 90s, the engine 6 indexes 613 was equipped with 2 blockheads, each of which had 4 valves, aimed and due to 2 turbines interviewing the leader with a rather modest volume of tenths of a liter. The return reached horsepower, surrounding the moment with the help of turbines. Of course, it was equal to meters, so it is not surprising that a quarter of a mile from a place is bulky, but the stylish universal 4 meters 71 centimeters long is capable of flying in just 15.27 hundredths of a second. That is, on the way home of the Judicial Department, the police could chase 28 in the back and even surprise the owners. At the same time, the universal ones were well controlled by the top 4 flaunting German discs without 16 inches. In general, this is a rather rare case when we make a Japanese car. I am so attracted to, and in the meantime is transported to even earlier 90s, namely in 1949, to look at even more evil from the point of view of the obligatory and humiliation on the road universal. So, the 4th place and the fate of the role were tied to happiness. Fortunately, let's start with the fact that the abbreviation BRIC already means that we have a machine with different roots, because it is deciphered only as thieves stole experiments. That also means the presence of almost the best in the world will arrival of a powerful motor to a box with short transmissions and a drill from driving a car both on asphalt and in preparation, and the abbreviation of the bones of decoding the fate of the internet technology means that we have a version with an even more engine and lack of many amenities of the reduction in it. In addition, Kostya had an even stiffer suspension, modified DDD settings. Modest at first glance, but the proprietary opposition of the 2-liter engine, due to the turbine, produced 250 horsepower, that is, 10 more. Standard version of the moment, digested for 380 meters. Lightweight, full-fledged, versatile on mechanics with the grace of cheetahs, he easily got off the ground and exchanged 100 in less than 6 seconds, while 1/4 he obeyed in 14 whole 4/10ths of a second. And with a very unsuccessful start, it is possible that only about 14 seconds. Now this was really a shell, capable of even being packed to capacity with purchases from supermarkets with children and the owner's wife on the back couch, nerves at a traffic light of some kind of spiral. 348, but, unfortunately, on the highway against the bank's service sector, there was little chance due to the short transmissions of Maxim delayed and up to 220 km per hour. But the next one, trying for an honorable 3rd place, could shake the nerves of the owner in February both at the traffic lights and on the highway met again in 34 Turin. You, of course, remember the times of the confrontation 500, and again 3488 was again the queen. Among the sedan is 15 strong inline 6 Maxim, 250 km per hour and 6.10ths of a second to accelerate to 190. Its slightly overshadowed top 124th bodywork capable of doing 806.1 of a second on a passport and an apartment in 14.1 of a second. Already in December the 91st was again rehabilitated in the eyes of fans. Having received the updated engine, 3840 sat down and went faster than a top. Now imagine that the introduction of such a gun under the hood of a Universal in the 34th body happened in March 1990, and the car just caused a wild resort. Look how graceful its features are necessarily. This is a real predator under the guise of a universal beauty. The car makes many people in those years and today. Even some people have dangerously overshadowed their car. Is it a joke? Leather front panel trim, leather seats with progress and lecturer, adjustment, climate control, airbag control, cool audio system and even headlights, heating, not to mention other little things such as a sunroof lecturer. And most importantly, the inline six increased in volume by 3.8 of a liter, received increased release in exhaust valves for a different release in exhaust, as well as different diameters. Now it gave out 340 horsepower and the moment 400 meters. Such a 5 walk be healthy. 97 kilometers per hour from scratch was recruited again as much as 0.6 of a second. The first 100 seemed again as much as 0.9 of a second. And the sound from 38 was such that it could easily be overshadowed by the beauty of the president of the group. And maximum had to be limited but it was a very outstanding indicator even for myself and to tell the exact time. And if we consider that the sedan again with this engine flew 1/4 of a mile in 13.8 of a second, and this is still not the best case, then the staff, who were only 80 kilograms heavier, did it in about 14 seconds, and perhaps and drove out. Of these, the shed was managed in much the same way as always. That is, cancelling. Perhaps it was the best serial Universal 1990. And you went down to August 1995. The second place I will give the Universal 55-250 to the body. Now imagine that in an imaginary yard in 1998. You are in a chic mood after watching the premiere at the cinema, and now the culture of black comedy. Money cards, 2 barrels to top get in your brand new Universal haul with an electronically adjustable steering wheel. Driver's seats, which are regulated by means of electrical appliances. Even the headrest height is maintained. And all this is in the computer memory. Let the motor hear a gorgeous pass, the most powerful 8.5 liters. Put the machine selector in position and start. It just piles up from traffic light to traffic light, so that the wide tires begin to smoke from the direction of the owners of ordinary cars leading with you in the stream. This seems to be even more spectacular, because the shed burning tires sounds really strong. Then a friend calls on your built-in phone in the car and asks for help transferring, say, a medium-sized wardrobe, and you can safely subscribe to this without resorting to the help of other vehicles. That would be totally reliable jet and the relative details of 55 consists of the assembly as a always on and this is a blessed attention to driven with the 4 forces with a moment of 530 meters from here and 5.8 tenths of a second to accelerate to 800 on the machine and 250 kilometers per hour of maximum guidance at greater in the return of 13.5 tenths of a second. This is how the 33rd chapter wrote about. So it's pretty darn fast for the 90s. There is also information that there was at least one full-fledged Universal and 55 people. But I also give the first place without a twinge of conscience to the best, in my opinion, family, albeit with the proviso of outside interference. The piston is Universal IDN 2, it is beautiful and damn fast, and in addition everything is weather, but the details about it are professed by my voice from the past. Ever since the 80s, the company, which was in crisis, this trend continued, and in the early 90s, sales along with the volume of production decreased. The world-famous auto manufacturer of sports cars suffered losses. Nevertheless, it was precisely such a deplorable state of affairs, perseverance, that gave birth to several auto masterpieces, and also helped to hold on to Marquina sailed in those harsh years. The first masterpiece is the famous Top 500D, which was assembled at the piston plant in Abkhazia, and the second, of course, too, which, by the irony of history, was assembled there, but later, in the period from March 1994 of July, 1990 years, the cooperation of two famous Britons consisted in the following spices were to turn a very dynamic 2030 highly versatile two samples of 1990 years, a mad barn, capable of dealing with the majority on the road. Cause of those years. First of all, the engineers turned the piston into two motors. To do this, they demolished it with new camshafts, new exhaust manifolds and, of course, more efficient turbines at home. Naturally, this transformation did not end there. The motor received a high-performance slapstick bag ahead of programming, brains, an enlarged radiator interview crops, and a fuel pressure regulator rebuffing 911. The result of all these works is admirable even now. 2.2 liters were removed from the engine volume, and 315 horsepower, the surrounding moment, increased 250 meters to meters at thousands of revolutions, and step mechanics were used as a result. The two-term system of the complete nature of the adequate has been reorganized through the reliable self-blocking primarily into the differentiation of torsos. In addition, for her differentiation had a manual electret, a pneumatic layout, which automatically differed when a speed of 24 km per hour was reached before work. The engine piston and ingenious design of complete nature turned into a real bullet disguised as a compact family businessman. True, in order to fire the motor, it was always necessary to keep the minimum in the zone of medium revolutions, or even higher, otherwise it was blown off the turbine, and the car turned into an area. For that, absolutely none of the classmates at the time could shoot a glance at 48 km per hour in 1.5 seconds. Moreover, the press of those years was full of headlines that some kind of universal acceleration to this speed faster than the fastest supercar at the time. Clara, sir, according to the passport, the size of 100 km per hour took up 0.4 of a second. This is the level here of Peterov and the Omega Lotus from the past review. True, now I have to make the ropes happy, and just recently I found a protest that grew out of two. I managed to overcome a quarter of a mile right up to 13.6 of a second. This is a worthy result. After all, then there simply did not exist serious universal halls that could overcome apartments by only 0.4 of a second slower than Lotus Omega and Albina 10 bits each. If you liked the video and want to hear what you were capable of. Second of the past. Like this video and make posts. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Voiced by Yandex Speech Kit.